Here we are at Pinson State Archaeological Site, just outside of Pinson, Tennessee, just south of Jackson, Tennessee. We have our park manager, Mark Holloman, here. Mark, we appreciate you inviting us in, and we're anxious to see what you have to show for us here today. And also, I'd like to introduce Mark Norton, who's the head archaeologist here, and Mark is going to be telling us many interesting things about what goes on here at the park. Mark Holloman, could I ask you to tell us just a little bit about what we are going to see today?
Well, sure, Dennis, I'd appreciate it. Pinson Mounds is a state park run by the Department of Conservation, state of Tennessee. We're located roughly 10 miles south of Jackson in West Tennessee, about an hour and a half from Memphis and about 2 hours from Nashville. We're a state archaeological area made up of 13 Indian mounds, a museum, a group camp, 2 picnic shelters, a playground, roughly 6 miles of hiking trails, nature trails, and also a boardwalk. We are open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 4:30 on Saturday, from 8 to 4:30 on Sunday, from 1 until 5.
Good. Mark, we're excited and anxious to be here and anxious to see what's inside the park. Mark, we're looking forward to hearing the many interesting things you're going to tell us about.
Great.
Okay. Welcome to Pinson State Park.
This is the interior of our museum. The museum was built to represent an Indian mound with dirt surrounding the exterior of it. Inside the museum, we have a reception area with the park ranger on duty 5 days a week. We also have a park naturalist on duty to explain the cultural and historical areas of the park. The museum here also incorporates the park office, which is for administration and running the park. Downstairs in the basement, the archaeologist, the resident archaeologist, has his office and laboratory. We have an 80-seat theater, which we show videos, slides, and give programs to school groups. The rest of our museum is made up of a 4,500 square foot exhibit area with exhibits, replicas, artifacts of the area.
The Pinson Mound site consists of at least 13 mounds, a geometric earthen enclosure, and habitation areas that cover a 400-acre area. The Middle Woodland period is what archaeologists call the time frame between 200 BC and AD 500. The archaeological investigations that have taken place at this site put the Pinson Mound site between AD 1 and AD 300. During the Middle Woodland period, these Native Americans were what we call horticulturalists. They had large gardens and that grew corn, beans, squash, pumpkins, sunflower, things of that nature, as well as exploiting the natural resources that are located at this site. This site's unique because it's located in an area where there are 3 biotic zones, which where we're standing here is the upland environment, there are the beach slopes, then there's the swamp bottomlands, the cypress bottomlands. And each of those environments provide very rich flora and fauna to provide a wealth of food for these people. Also within this zone, geologically, there are very good clay resources, which may be another reason why they chose this particular location. Of course, during this time frame, they were making pottery, and from what we know about the Middle Woodland period throughout the Southeast, there was a vast trade network. So this clay may have been a part of their resource to trade for other items that we found at this site. As you know, the land that makes up this portion of Tennessee was purchased from the Chickasaw people in 1818. And in 1820, the first surveying team to come through, a surveyor named Joel Pinson, was the first European to discover the site, hence the name Pinson Mounds. So word started trickling out to everyone about this site, the discovery of the site, and in the late 1800s, a local newspaper man named J.G. Cisco started writing a few short articles about the site, which spread out to other areas of the nation, letting people know about this important site. Then in 1875, the president of the local McKenzie Male and Female College decided that he would come down and do some excavations at the site. He acquired a $25 grant from the Smithsonian Institution to do some excavations here. And a couple of weeks later, he wrote to the director of the Smithsonian and stated that no less than $100 is needed to excavate a site of this size. So tells you a little bit about 1875. But in 1917, a man named William Meyer, who also worked for the Smithsonian Institution, came to Pinson Mounds and hired a local engineer named E.G. Buck to produce a professional map of the site. And also, he went around the site and tried to record each of the mounds, which at the time he thought there were 35 mounds, as well as extensive and elaborate breastworks that were earthen breastworks that circled the site. From later excavations, they found that a lot of these were just natural rises instead of actual earthen mounds. But at the time, people were given for flowery statements. But news of the site is continually spreading out, and it wasn't until the late 50s that the local Jackson residents decided that, gosh, this is an important site and we need to see this preserved either through a national park or a state park. So they pushed the purchase of the site, first a tract of the forestry land in 1947, and then later in the 60s they purchased the remaining portion of the park here. So in 1961, they sent two archaeologists from the University of Tennessee, Fred Fisher and Charles McNutt, to do the first professional archaeological work here. And they met with the previous owner, Johnny Sauls, and asked, well, have you seen anything unusual here, any burned areas? And he said yes, and he took them back to what we call the Mound 14 sector. And they did some shovel testing in that area and found what is known as a wall trench house. And that type of structure is typically associated with the Mississippian period. So it was kind of an anomaly. At that time frame, in 1961, they thought, oh gosh, this is maybe a Mississippian site. It was kind of unusual because we have flat top mounds here, which are normally found on Mississippian sites. But from their excavations, all the artifacts they found were from the Middle Woodland period. So it's still kind of an anomaly. So in 1963, they sent another team of archaeologists, Dan Morrison and Richard Paul Hemus, over, who continued the excavation process, and they too found mainly Middle Woodland period artifacts. And they thought that the main fluorescence of the site was during the Middle Woodland period, with some Mississippian period presence. So this kind of held together until the 70s, when they started building the actual park itself and the museum and the interpretive trails. When John Brewster from Nashville came over and did some excavations and found much more evidence that points toward the Middle Woodland period. He found structures as well as exotic materials like quartz, galena, and mica, items that represent trade, which is something that's going on throughout the Middle Woodland period. So it was not until the 80s that the most tantalizing information that was recovered, when they excavated one of the burial mounds here, the twin mounds specifically. They put a 4-meter wide test slot trench into the mound, which gave them the complete building sequence of the mound, as well as what's located at the base of the mound. They found 6 tombs at the base of the mound, 4 of which they excavated. The interesting thing about these tombs, they were log-covered tombs. In one burial, there were 8 women buried together, and they were young women in their 20s and 30s. They all had elaborate headdresses on that had copper stains in the headdresses, as well as copper stains near this portion, which probably represents copper ear spools, as well as lots of marginella and freshwater pearls. So that tells us that these individuals are high status individuals. So anytime you have a high status, you have a low status. So there's definitely evidence of ranking at this site. At an adjacent tomb, there were 4 older men buried together. And the interesting part of that is one of the men was wearing what we call rattles. And they were made out of human parietal bone. It took 2 heads to make the 2 rattles. Now these rattles were embossed on the front with a very elaborate signature on the front, which we'll show you some slides of. We think that this person was probably a shaman. The other men in the burial had a schist pendant, and there was also a mica mirror, which are other high status grave goods. The other 2 tombs that were excavated contained 2 individuals each, and the bone was in such poor condition there's not a lot that they can discern about those individuals, but there were not any elaborate grave goods with those people. Now, of course, also along the base there were several crematory pits, some of which only contained animal remains, and others which probably contained human remains, but the pieces of bone were very small and friable, so it was hard to tell much about them. They did find flecks of mica and galena associated with those crematory pits, so it's possible that they were human cremations. So another excavation from this site was Mound 31, where they found an older individual that was buried in a singular burial pit. And again, there were other crematory pits that were located in association with that burial. So then later in the 1989, we did some excavations here on Ozier Mound, which is a flat top ceremonial mound. And the purpose of that excavation was to see if there were any structures built on top of this mound. So a large block was excavated in the top of this mound down to a sand layer, which represents the last building stage prior to the extant built top of the mound. And we did not find any post patterns, which you would find if there was a structure built on top. This is something that they found at other sites throughout the southeast. In Mississippi, there's the Ingomar site. In Alabama, there's the Walling site. And in Georgia, there's the Leak Mounds. Each of these middle woodland centers have flat top mounds, but without structures on top. So we're finding out lots of things about these middle woodland ceremonial centers that occurs at other sites the same way. Then in 1993, we did another excavation down here in the Mound 14 sector, which is where the 1961 excavations found the wall trench house. We put in test excavations adjacent to that wall trench house to see if there were other structures there, and also because we knew that there were middle woodland period deposits in that area. The reason we did the excavations too was because there's an erosional gully there that's eroding away these known deposits. But again, at that location we found lots of post molds, evidence of structures that are built there, as well as trash pits and whatnot from that time frame, as well as lots of middle woodland period artifacts, and the most important of which are what we call bladelets. And these bladelets have been thought to be used for many different things. From microware studies, they know that they were used to cut soft materials, possibly to make the cane matting that these individuals were buried upon, as well as some researchers have hypothesized that they were shaving their heads with these things in a certain kind of Hopewellian hairdo, if you will. So, as well as we've found some mica, galena, and quartz, other evidence of trade at this site. So, again, we have found out many different things about this site from these different excavations that have taken place. And archaeology is an additive process where we use all this information and stack it together to get a better picture of the whole picture. So there's a lot that we know and there's a lot that we do not know. And hopefully and since this is preserved as a state park, hopefully there'll be excavations to take place here throughout the future, and hopefully that will all weave together and get a better picture of what's really going on here.
We are now located inside the Pinson Mounds Museum. This museum was built around 1980 and completed around 1981. We have a 4,500 square foot exhibit of Indian artifacts, maps about the site here. We have an 80-seat amphitheater located right here, which we show movies, videos, slides, programmings about Pinson Mounds and about the area right here. Located in the basement, we have our regional office for our archaeologist. We do have an archaeologist on staff full-time. He has a laboratory and an office located in the basement. We're going to take you on a tour of the museum here, show you some of the artifacts, some of the things pertaining to Pinson Mounds State Park.
This is one of our interpretive displays here in the museum that represents one of the archaeological investigations of the site back at what's known as the Duck's Nest. This display has an audio-visual equipment that goes along with this so the visitor can tell how archaeologists go about digging these features. In this feature we see all the different tools and that the archaeologist uses in recovering this information. One of the hypotheses that we're working on at this site is the possibility of solar alignments. This is Saul's mound, which is the key mound of the site. This is mound 29 and mound 28, which are built equidistant to Saul's mound. The part that tells us that these two mounds were built in relation to this mound and probably during the same time frame. The neat thing about this is that mound 29 is 90 degrees from Saul's mound, which would mark your equinox, and mound 28 is 57.5 to 61 degrees off of north, which would mark your summer solstice, sunrise. So again, this is a hypothesis, but we believe that these mounds were placed there to mark these times, which may help tell the number of days in the year. And since these people are horticulturalists, this would be a more important thing for their life, and it also may represent the different types of rituals and ceremonies that took place at this site.
I'd like to introduce Theda Young, our park seasonal programmer, who is going to tell you a little bit about the programs we do for the school kids and for the adults, and also a little bit about our ArchaeoFest, our major event held each fall.
Thank you, Mark. Here at the park, we do all sorts of programming. Programming entails education about the site, about the mounds, about the culture, and I also include a little bit of nature programming. The Native Americans loved nature, they respected nature, and here at the park nowadays we have plenty of nature around the mounds. Of course, the site covers 1,100 acres. It's a little difficult to include everything in a program. We program school kids every spring, every fall. We do about 1,200 programs a year. Last year we programmed 25,000 people. The school kids anywhere from kindergarten up through college, 15 in a group up to 275 in a group. We take the kids on tours of the park. Sometimes a hay wagon tour takes them out to see some of the various mounds. We explain to them about the mounds and about the the lifestyle that the Native Americans had while they were here. And sometimes we take them out on a tour to Saul's Mound, which is directly behind me. The students love this site. They come out here from all over Tennessee. We have some come from Kentucky, some from Corinth, Mississippi. We haven't had any from Arkansas yet. We haven't had many from east of the Tennessee River, but they do come here from all over. School kids are the priority programmers here at the park. We do have the general public, which we program to during the week, on the weekends. We also have a lot of scout groups that come out here on the weekends. The kids also have various hands-on activities that they do here at the park. We have several activities inside the museum, anywhere from kind of like a scavenger hunt where they go through the museum finding answers to questions, learning about the site and about the mounds. And we have hands-on activities which include Indian things, where we have various things that the Native Americans used, made, or various facets of nature that they took use of. Our main forte in programming every year, besides the school groups, is ArchaeoFest. ArchaeoFest is a huge event we have every third weekend in September. It covers this entire grounds from the museum all the way to Saul's Mound. This area is covered with people. Those 2 days, last year we had 20,000 people. We had about 1,500 in programming that weekend alone. So it's a huge, huge event. We have crafters out here of Native American lineage, demonstrating their crafts, showing how they make their crafts, keep their craft alive, keep their culture alive. They're out here talking to people about their culture, and a lot of the crafts are for sale. Also that weekend we have hay wagon tours like we offer to the school kids, except this time we go to the western side of the park, see the Twin Mounds and Ozier Mound. We also have Native American dancers out here. Sometimes we have Cherokee, sometimes we have Choctaw. We kind of alternate between the two. It's a very large weekend, and it happens every year. This year coming up is our 13th. So it's been extremely successful. But it's a fascinating park. Programming is almost endless out here. You can never go out and find nothing to do, nothing to talk about. There's always the mounds and the park itself.
Looking down from the top of Saul's Mound, we see our museum office and archaeology office. The museum was built to represent an Indian mound, constructed of concrete and concrete blocks with a layer of dirt placed over top of it. This building was built in about 1980.
We're standing here at Saul's Mound, which is the key mound of the site. It's 72 feet tall, and it's the second largest mound in the United States, second only to Monk's Mound, which is located at Cahokia. This is the key mound to the site. We believe that all the other mounds are built in relation to this mound. It's been calculated that if a single person dumped a single wheelbarrow full of dirt every 15 minutes for 40 hours a week, it would take him 250 years to build this mound. So that gives you kind of an idea of what kind of volume of dirt we're looking at. And again, this was built from single basket loads of dirt, which was borrowed from an area just south of here, about 150 meters away.
Pinson Mounds is also an archaeological site. It's also a nature park. We have over 6 miles of trails located in the park. Most of the trails are handicap accessible, either being asphalted or graveled. We have a quite extensive nature trail that takes off and goes from the boardwalk, which is located right here behind me. The boardwalk is about a half mile in length. It takes us down to the Forkadero River. There is an abundance of wildlife down here. It's not uncommon to see deer, squirrels, rabbits, snakes, any other critters that you might want to see in the park. We also have a nature trail that takes off and goes across to our eastern citadel and comes back. Trail system is extensive. It's about 6 miles in length, and it ties the entire park together.
Okay, this is the duck's nest. In the museum is where we have that interpretive display that shows this particular spot as it was excavated by a professional archaeologist in 1982. It was originally found in 1963 by Dan Morse, and he called it the duck's nest basically because it's just a large depression. It looks kind of like a nest. But there was one conoidal jar found in the excavation of this feature, which is on display in the museum. Okay, this is Ozier Mound that we're looking at here, and you can see in the foreground this is a ramp that was constructed at some stage of the process. This is the mound that we tested in 1989 to see if there were any structures built on top, which we did not find. Again, this is a ceremonial mound, a flat top mound that was built adjacent to the twin mounds, which are located about 150 meters south of this mound. And the rituals and ceremonies that took place on top of this mound may have directly coincided with the burial of those very important people in the twin mounds. Okay, with the ramp here, this ramp has been measured with a transit, and its alignment is around 57.5 degrees, which is only a few degrees off from what would be the summer solstice sunrise. So it's this ramp was not just tossed in at the haphazardly. It was placed in a very specific manner. This might suggest that various rituals or ceremonies that coincide with the summer solstice sunrise may have been taking place on top of this mound. Okay, we're standing here now at the twin mounds, which we touched upon earlier. This was the northernmost twin that was excavated back in 1983, where they put a 4-meter slot trench into the mound to see how the mound was built and how many stages, and more importantly to see the individuals that are buried in this mound. As we talked about earlier, there were 6 tombs discovered in this mound, and 4 were completely excavated. Again, these were high status individuals, and we've learned a lot about the importance of this site as a whole, and these people probably represent the ruling class of the site. Again, we want to talk about the preservation of this site. Luckily, this is all owned by the state of Tennessee as a state park. We need to preserve sites like this. Excavations should be limited to professional excavations. And that way we know we can find out as much as possible about the people that built these mounds. We need to preserve these sites. There's only a limited number of sites throughout the southeast. And we should only dig when we need to dig. And that way we can preserve these for future generations. Now in the archaeological lab, where we actually place all these different artifacts out in separate trays, and we end up classifying different sherds by their tempering agent. all these artifacts here from the excavations we did in 1993 in the Mound 14 sector. We also have here some microblades that we were mentioning earlier about, that these may have been used in different functions where they were making, say, reed matting and possibly the shaving of heads. It's been thought that these have been found on other middle woodland sites throughout the eastern woodlands, and it's something that occurs on this particular time frame. We also find lots of quartz artifacts. This is crystalline quartz. Probably this is a flake from the production of possibly different types of artifacts that may have been used in rituals or ceremonies, as well as galena, which is native lead, and also steatite, which is another, it's also called soapstone, which during prehistoric times they made bowls out of. Now, all these items are from the mountainous regions. You don't find those locally. So that's another thing that represents the trade network that was taking place during the time frame of Pinson Mounds. Okay, this is one of our displays in the museum, and what this represents is a sequence in time beginning with the Adena culture down here approximately 1000 to 200 BC, which the epicenter was located up north of this region. But we do have Adena culture in this area as well. And as you see over here, we have some of the artifacts associated with that time frame. Then we move into the Hopewell woodland area, which this site is a part of, beginning at 200 BC and extending up to about 500 AD. You can see on this map here of the area, the total area that the Adena Hopewell culture is found. And again, here's some artifacts that are very typical of the Adena Hopewell area. Copper ear spools, Snyder points, and platform pipes. Then we move up into the Mississippian period, which runs roughly from AD 900 up into the historic contact point. As this depicts, we have platform mounds with ramps. During this time frame, they were building structures on top of these mounds, and this is definitely associated with chiefdom level society, and some of the artifacts that are found with the Mississippian period. And of course, the historic period is the time of contact with Europeans, of course DeSoto being the first. We have different trade items that show up on the archaeological record that indicate protohistoric sites. Okay, this is an artist's rendition of what some of the burials might have looked like that taken place over at the Twin Mounds. As you can see in this photograph, the first thing that they would do is remove the topsoil and then dig the pit down into the substrata. In this case, they would just lay a cane matting down beneath the body and then would build a log structure over the body to keep the dirt off of them. As you can see in this depiction, there are logs underneath the body, which was what was the case in the burial of the 8 women. There were logs beneath the women and then a cane matting, and the bodies were laid on top of that. They also found evidence of cane near the top of the burials, which suggests that it may have been much like this drawing. In the excavations of the Twin Mounds, they did find at least 4 crematory pits in and around the log-covered tombs. They found about 8 in total, but 4 turned out to have just animal bone within them. But 4 were probably crematory pits. We don't know exactly why some people were cremated while others were not. It may be as simple as these may be some of the lower class individuals buried with the higher status individuals, possibly for helping them in the afterlife. It may be as simple as that. We do not know. But yes, there is evidence of cremations at this site. As you can see in this display, we have all these different exotic materials that are found in various geologic and geographic areas that were heavily traded during the Middle Woodland period. These items, of course, were considered very valuable, and obviously only the high status individuals would have these sorts of things. As you can see in the top, the photograph is copper. This is mica here from the mountainous regions. This is Flint Ridge flint, quartz crystals, and possibly obsidian from out in the Yellowstone area. And the number 3 there is galena, which is an iron ore, a natural iron ore. So all these different items obviously travel for many different miles through the trade network to the various ceremonial centers like here at Pinson Mounds. This display shows pretty much the history of the site itself, from its discovery in 1820 by Joel Pinson to 1917 when William Meyer came to the site and created this map, to the early 50s when a group of concerned citizens out of Jackson kept pushing the state to purchase this land and preserve it for future generations. So we owe a lot to this group of individuals who could see at that time that this site was of great importance and that it should be preserved for future generations. So I guess we have them to thank for providing this museum that we're in today. Again, these other shots, Pinson Mounds was put on the National Register of Historic Places and became a national landmark in 1966. And the last slide depicts excavations that have taken place in the meanwhile to better interpret this site for this interpretive museum. All right, this display depicts the excavations that took place in the Twin Mounds. As you can see here, we have some of the artifacts that were recovered from those excavations, and the visitor to the museum can see photographs and actual excavation photographs of how these interments were uncovered and interpreted to what we know today about the site. As you can see, on the top here are marginella and freshwater pearls that were found with the 8 women. You can see here on the lower shelf the mica sheet, which was probably a mica mirror, probably had a wooden back to it. The schist pendant, which was found also with the older men, and a boat stone that was recovered from an interment near the top of the mound, which indicates that it was added to the mound after the mound was completed. The most interesting part to me is this is a replica of the actual rattles and the abstract motif that was inscribed on the outside of the rattles themselves. Again, those were made from human parietal bone, and we know that it took 2 skulls to make the 2 rattles. So that tells us that there was definitely some conflict with neighboring groups, but we don't know exactly the reasons behind that. Okay, this is a really nice drawing of the 4 individuals that were buried in the log cover tomb within the Twin Mounds. As you can see, with the first person here is the one that was wearing the rattles by his knees. Again, the schist pendant is located right here, and the mica mirror was somewhere in this area. And the 4th individual was laid at the end of the pit. We don't know a whole lot about these individuals other than that they're probably high status, high ranking individuals with these types of artifacts in association with them. This was a log-covered tomb. Once they were placed in this position, logs were placed over the burials, and they were fired in situ, which means that they were burned in place. And this may be simply for the logs to be preserved for a much longer time, and to keep the bugs and whatnot from eating the logs. And then clay was put over that before the mound was actually built upon these burials. Of course, this individual with the rattles at his knees, we believe him to be a shaman. And during this time frame, this might have been the vehicle that he achieved this status, this higher status, whereas other individuals may have acquired the status through bloodlines. So in later times, you could achieve status by becoming a warrior. So we're starting to see, with the stratified society, both ways to achieve that either achieve or acquire that status. Okay, this display is an educational display that shows different types of things that the Native Americans were doing. As you can see to the right, this depicts the way pottery was put together using the coil method. Of course, this is well before the wheel, pottery wheel was invented. Moving to the left, you can see various types of stone tools that range everything from drills to projectile points. And then over to the left are various types of artifacts from what are called banner stones, which are typically called atlatl weights. This was an atlatl is a spear thrower, and during this time frame, or throughout much of our prehistory, the atlatl was used. This was also the type of projectile that they used before the bow and arrow. Also, here at the park, we're in the process of putting several new displays together, which two will be completed within the next few weeks. And within 1 year, we have plans to build a complete and comprehensive set of displays to depict artifacts from each time frame, from the Paleo-Indian period to historic period. So visitors will be able to see many different things from different time periods and see how technological changes have taken place from the very first colonists of the New World up into the historic contact period. Okay, this is another one of our educational displays, which gives you a better idea of some of the things that these Native Americans were growing during this time frame. We know that they were growing corn of some variety at this time frame. We don't know what extent that was, but it was not as extensive as it became in the agricultural times. We know they were growing sunflowers and squash plants, and of course beans, and the Indian tobacco, of course, and the gourds are located right there. Again, this display just depicts some of the different things that Native Americans were utilizing during prehistoric times.
Well, that wraps up our visit to Pinson Mounds. I want to thank the park manager, Mark Holloman, who's been very kind and courteous and very hospitable. We encourage a lot of people to come and visit Pinson Mounds, and I know you won't be sorry. Also, Mark Norton, we thank you, the head archaeologist here, and it's been very interesting, and we appreciate your time. And please give us a call when you get ready to do some excavating out here.
I sure will.
Okay. Wow, 2,000 years old. Here it is at Pinson Park. It gives you a sense that you wish you could climb in a time machine and go back in time 2,000 years to see what type of society lived here. It's been interesting, and we hope you've enjoyed it, and that does it for Shepherd's Chapel Network documentary on Pinson Mounds. The visitors that frequently visited Pinson Mounds were the ancestors of the Cherokee, Chickasaw, and Choctaw Indians. One of the most interesting things that we learned at our visit with the Pinson Mounds is that these people had a basic understanding of geometry. Saul's mound, which is the largest, or the second largest, it's the largest mound at this site and the second largest mound in the United States, is located at the exact center of the site. Mounds 28 and 29 are located both exactly 3,350 feet from Saul's mound on the northeast and southeast corner. The Indians there were able to determine the equinoxes and summer solstice by the light as it struck on the relationship of mound 28 and 29 with Saul's mound. Of course, the Indians there were horticulturists, so this was important for various reasons. One, it helped them determine planting seasons, which would be important for successful farming. But we also believe that they used these to determine the times of different ceremonies. Another indication that these Indians had a knowledge of basic geometry was the location of the ramp that goes up onto Ozier Mound. They allowed the Indians to determine the summer solstice by the location of this mound and the way that the sun hit the light. Could it be possible the early visitors to this region also marked the equinoxes and summer solstice for religious ceremonial events? We believe so. Archaeologists have documented the Pinson Mounds archaeological site was a ceremonial center. It would have been important for these people to be able to identify which day or days the ceremonies were to be conducted on. Besides the ramp's location, Ozier Mound lays claim to another interesting fact. Test excavations were done on Ozier Mound in 1981, and radiocarbon dates obtained from charcoal samples indicate that Ozier Mound was completed in AD 100. Ozier Mound is the oldest dated mound of its kind in North America. Most ramped mounds were built during the Mississippian period, 1,000 years after Ozier Mound was completed. Ozier Mound marks the northwest corner of the mound complex. Because of the large number of mounds, 12 in all at Pinson Mounds, and the tremendous number of man-hours it would have taken to construct these mounds, one would think that there was a large village site in the area. Surprisingly, this is not the case. Archaeologists haven't found any evidence that backs up the fact that there was a large village area in this area. So they have evidence, however, that point out that this whole area was used exclusively for ceremonial purposes. And when they were coming from far away, and it's documented that they came from as far away as southern Georgia, northern Florida, and Louisiana to conduct their ceremonies there. This is documented by the pottery that was found in the Pinson Mounds area, which matches the types of pottery at those locations. Another interesting point about these people is that they may have been matriarchal. Matriarchal means that the women ruled the society, the family, or the government. You will recall that the 8 young maidens were buried together. They had ornamental headdresses as well as copper spools as jewelry, and this would indicate that they may have been a matriarchal society. In a matriarchal society, the family name is passed down from the woman's side of the family as well. State parks and national parks such as Pinson Mounds are important to the preservation of such sites as we have at Pinson Mounds. Without this protection, these areas would be destroyed and gone forever. We urge you to support your local state and national parks. Well, that does it for our documentary on Pinson Mounds. We hope you've enjoyed it as much as we've enjoyed bringing it to you. And for now, this is Dennis Murray saying so long.